pointed at him. You pull over, you pull over. Could have did a number of things. He had his lights on for all of what? 25 seconds? Your sirens are not activated, nor your lights activated, correct?
No, we're not up to the vehicle yet.
Okay.
No.
We're in Lansing, Michigan for a preliminary examination. On March 13th, 2025, Michigan State Police Sergeant Scott Williams was working a search warrant operation near Walsh Street when surveillance flagged that a suspect was leaving the area. Officers had a name and a photo, Markeel Winfrey, and they moved to intercept. What followed led to a felony charge of fleeing and eluding in the 3rd degree. In Michigan, a preliminary examination puts the full burden on the prosecution to establish probable cause, and the state had one witness and a dashcam to do it. What the prosecution didn't account for was the defense attorney who had watched that same footage frame by frame and walked into that courtroom with a very specific set of questions.
Winfrey and 25-01645. Appear, please.
Yep.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury? You can have a seat. State your first and last name and syllable.
And what was your reason for dispatching to that address?
So we were at briefing with Lansing's SOS narcotic team. They advised that they were doing a search warrant on Lakewood Street. And while we were doing the search warrant, they advised that surveillance said that the subject might have been getting into a vehicle and leaving soon, so we started moving that way. And then prior to us and START, which is Lansing's SWAT team, getting to the residence, they said they were accessing the vehicle.
While you were in pursuit of that suspect, what happened next?
So I was not driving, I was in the vehicle as a passenger. They said the vehicle was coming down Walsh Street up to Holmes. We were told the vehicle was coming down Walsh, so we pulled up to the intersection of Walsh and Holmes Street where we observed the vehicle.
Okay.
There was a black pickup at the stop sign, and behind the black pickup was our suspect vehicle, which is the blue Chevy Malibu.
Okay.
We turned off of Holmes, we're facing northbound. We turned eastbound onto Walsh, and then spun behind the vehicle to initiate the traffic stop.
So you said that you saw Mr. Winfrey in the driver's seat of that Chevy. What did you do next?
So I was, like I said, I was in the passenger seat.
And who was driving?
Trooper Harsh.
Okay.
We pulled up, kind of like, we weren't able to totally get around the vehicle, kind of like to the side of it, activated the emergency lights. At this point, I think the black pickup that was in front of him probably saw our lights, so the black pickup didn't move either. And at this point, the Chevy Malibu then went off the curb and went around the black pickup and it fled westbound.
So,
Morning, Trooper.
Morning, sir. It's Sergeant.
Sergeant.
Yeah,
Okay. Sergeant. So you weren't at the location when this individual left, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And you stated you received information from surveillance?
Yeah, it was, yes, on the same radio.
It would be fair to say that surveillance would be in unmarked cars, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you allegedly intersected with this car or saw this car at what point in time?
When it came up to the stop sign behind the black pickup at Walsh.
Okay. You weren't given a license plate, were you, of this vehicle?
I don't recall if we were or not. I don't recall.
Okay, but had you been given one, you would be able to say, yes, I was giving this particular pertinent information. You would agree to that, right?
I would, yeah, that would be part of it, yeah.
Okay. And you stated what kind of car is this?
Chevy Malibu.
That's a very common car, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you allegedly saw this Secretary of State photo at the briefing?
Yes.
Do you know when this photograph was taken that you were seeing?
No.
You don't?
It would say on his image, but.
Okay, but did you put that in a report or anything like that?
No.
So you don't know if it's an outdated photograph?
No.
Okay, you don't know if individuals. Now, you were equipped with body cam, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to review your body cam before today?
I did not review my body cam. No, my body cam really wouldn't be important because it's facing down here. We're all in the vehicle, so it'd be more the in-car video.
Okay. Glad you said that. Now, when you first came to, I guess, the street, you had to make a U-turn, right?
We did. Yes.
Okay. And when you made the U-turn, whoever this vehicle wasn't in your visual, correct?
I guess how
you didn't, when you made this U-turn, you couldn't see this particular car at that time, right?
No, we could. So when we went south on, make sure I got my streets right here. South on Holmes, they advised where the car was coming down Walsh.
Okay. We
spun back northbound, and as we were approaching the intersection, making a eastbound shot onto Walsh, that car was right there, so we could see the car.
Okay.
And we could see the driver at the same time.
Now, Trooper, Sergeant, I'm sorry. If you were able to see the video, you would recognize the video from this particular. Now, Sergeant, does this appear to be an accurate depiction of the incident on which you are testifying today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to play the video at 0 seconds. And Officer Harshman, Trooper Harshman, that's your partner?
Yes, he was driving the vehicle.
Okay.
Did the video come with the, I will say, did it come with that writing on it?
That's why I was
Oh.
hesitant.
Yes, it came with the writing on there, which is it's great. Actually, the writing is,
Yeah, it's like the corners
Very
and stuff.
and okay, I'll play 40 seconds, 14 seconds, I'm sorry.
14 seconds.
Sergeant, you would agree that you had to complete a U-turn, correct?
Yeah. So that was when we turned down the street. We were given the information where it's at. We had to turn around. Yeah. So it looks like just off of home, I'm guessing right there.
Okay. And you would agree at this point in time, your sirens are not activated, nor your lights activated, correct?
No, we're not up to the vehicle yet.
Okay.
No.
And I'm gonna pause at 44 seconds. And Sergeant, you would agree that you had to complete another U-turn?
Yeah, because we were facing, I guess, eastbound. He was facing westbound. So when he fled, we had to do a
Okay,
U-turn.
without using the term fled, you would agree that at this point in time, you never came over your PA and said, hey, individual in whatever car, stop. You would agree to that, right?
Yeah, we never did.
Okay. Thank you. You'd agree that your sirens never came on where you hit your sirens to indicate to anybody in the vicinity that you may wanted them to pull over, correct?
So I'm not driving, so I didn't hit the sirens. I wouldn't be one of the ones that hit it anyways. At this point, no.
Okay, but you agree that watching this video, the sirens variable remained at 0, correct?
Hit it.
Okay, and you didn't yell out the window and say, hey, stop, did you? Okay. Continue at 48 seconds. And I'm gonna pause at 58 seconds. You would agree that at this point in time, your lights are at 0, correct? Your lights are off, correct?
Correct.
Okay. No sirens are on, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, this is at, I'm sorry, 0:58 seconds, you said?
Yes, Judge.
No lights on?
Yes. No lights or sirens. And I'm gonna pause it at 1:16. And you would agree at 1:16, no lights are on, no sirens are on, correct?
Yeah, at this point, I had the trooper terminate because we did not pursue that.
Oh, okay. So at this point in time, the pursuit was terminated, correct?
Correct. Once he fled.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off. But at this point in time, you would agree that this was terminated, correct?
Correct. From this point. Yes.
Okay. And previously to this point, you would agree that when you first got on the street, you had to do a U-turn, correct?
Yep.
When you made that U-turn, you agree that no lights were on, correct? Correct?
The first U-turn?
Yes, the first U-turn.
Yes, correct.
And you would agree that no sirens were on, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then when you made the second U-turn, after you completed that U-turn, you would agree that no sirens were on or lights, correct?
When we terminated, yes.
Okay. And you would agree that you never hit the sirens. The variable remained 0, correct?
It did, yes.
You agree that you didn't yell out the window, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree that you made no indication verbally to whoever was in the vicinity that you wanted them to stop. You'd agree with that, right? Honestly.
Other than the lights, no verbal, no.
Okay. But you'd agree that when you completed the U-turn, there were no lights on, correct? Just to be clear.
I guess you're talking about two different U-turns.
Okay, we'll go back.
You're talking like right when I initiated the stop?
The second U-turn. I'm going back to 37 seconds. So this is the second U-turn, correct? You'd agree, right?
Correct. This is when the stop is being exited.
Okay, this is when the stop. Okay. And you would agree at this point in time, nobody's in front of you, right? There's no car in front of you, right?
The suspect vehicle's right to the left, like tired right there.
Okay. And then no sirens are being activated, correct?
Based on the 0, no.
Okay. Thank you. Back. You just saw the video, correct? You would agree that when that U-turn was completed, the lights variable went to 0, correct? We'll go back just to be clear. I don't want you to say anything that's not true.
I just need to explain, I guess, what you're asking.
I'm just asking you. I don't be rude or anything, but I'm just asking you a simple question. Whether or not after your U-turn was completed, isn't it true that the lights were turned off?
So as the U-turn was completed there, when he pulled up to the stop sign, lights were on, yes.
Okay, thank you, Sergeant. Thank you, Sergeant. No further questions.
Sergeant, you were just asked about the lights in relation to the U-turn that was being made. When the lights were on, you had mentioned that you were right, the car was right to the left and the tire was right there. How close do you recall the suspect car being to the patrol vehicle at the time the lights were initiated?
Oh, 5 to 10 feet, very close, pretty much right next to each other.
Okay. And when those lights were activated, what did the suspect car do at that moment?
Pulled off the side of the roadway to the north, went up on the sidewalk and around the telephone pole and fled, continued westward.
So in that image where we had the stop sign, were they actually going up that curb to the right?
Correct.
Okay, so your lights were activated and that vehicle then jumped the curb.
Correct.
And Sergeant, you had said that, you were asked about the lights being turned off and the timing of that. You mentioned stopping engagement with the suspect vehicle.
Correct.
Do you know why that was done?
So as a sergeant, I'm in charge of our pursuits, whether authorizing or terminating them. And due to this not being with our policy within a violent felony, I had to terminate.
So stop. So that's the black pickup truck. This is the vehicle that allegedly the defendant or subject is in. Okay.
Sergeant, you testified that when you saw this particular vehicle, you had your lights on, correct? And you stated that this vehicle was a truck that was at the stop sign, correct? Correct?
There was a truck at the, yes.
Yeah, and you said after you put your lights on, this particular truck remained standstill, correct?
It is.
Okay, so let's watch this video because I'm kind of curious. Is this the truck you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we see this truck at 28 seconds. You then complete your turn, correct? I was pausing in at 54 seconds. You complete your turn, correct?
Correct.
Where's the truck at? Do you see the truck depicted on this video at 54 seconds? Yes or no?
At this point, no.
Okay. But you stated that the truck remained, correct?
Would you like me to explain?
You stated that the truck remained, correct? And after you completed your turn, the truck didn't yield to your lights, did they? They drove off, correct?
At this point, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. No further questions.
You said at this point, yes. Did you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. So when I made the statement that the truck stayed is what the reason on why the vehicle had to go up and around the dip, around the curve and around, because he didn't pull it off immediately. He stayed there because he saw the light, so that's why the suspect vehicle had to go around him. And as we were doing our U-turn, then he pulled off and we were able to pull that. That's what I was referring to.
Oh, so that's not something I would see on a on the dash cam though?
No, because it would have been behind us.
Okay, so the truck stayed, the blue vehicle went around the truck.
It went around that telephone pole there and then back onto the roadway.
Around this telephone pole?
Correct. Off the right side.
So you're saying they got on the curb?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Goes up on the sidewalk between where this curb is for this house and this pole, correct?
Yes, it goes to the right there. By the pole, you see the elevated sidewalk there? And
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
right there.
And then drives on the sidewalk?
Correct. And goes down that lip there. You see the right side of the truck?
Yeah.
Goes down that lip and then back onto Wall Street around that truck.
There's like a raised area on these people's curb.
Correct.
Did he drive on that?
Yes, he drove over top of that.
Oh, okay.
First and foremost, this officer, what valid reason did he have to stop Mr. Winfrey? He stated that they were allegedly there to do a search warrant and that he allegedly heard some type of information that Mr. Winfrey was getting in the car to leave. No arrest warrant. He didn't indicate that Mr. Winfrey had any type of traffic violation of which he should be stopped. No blinker, nothing of the sort. He stated, which is, I believe, not truthfully, that originally that he saw this truck. And when he put his lights on, this truck remained at a standstill. We saw from the video that this particular truck was at a stop sign, and after the sergeant completed its U-turn, this truck was gone. This truck did not yield to the lights. How would this truck know that the sergeant was aiming for the car behind him? Obviously, these lights were no indication to anybody that a traffic stop was being performed. We saw him do a particular U-turn. It took him 20 seconds to complete this U-turn. From a reasonable standpoint, it would seem that he was pulling up to this particular yard and people were approaching. You saw people coming from outside, they were approaching. It seemed like his business was at this particular residence. He had no indication that he put his sirens on, yelled out the window, put on a PA, had any indication whatsoever to anybody, least of all Mr. Winfrey, that he intended for any vehicle to stop, especially if you're going the opposite way of a particular vehicle. He could have pulled inside of the vehicle. He could have pulled on the side of the vehicle and said, hey, pointed at him, you pull over, you pull over. Could have did a number of things. He had his lights on for all of what, 25 seconds? And 20 of those seconds, he was completing a U-turn. And after he completed that particular U-turn, he turned his lights off. There's no indication whatsoever that anybody would have been under any knowledge that this officer intended them to turn around or stop. Now, he states that allegedly Mr. Winfrey went over the curb and did all this. From my observation of this video, it seemed that there's no room for Mr. Winfrey to go around this truck onto the curb, onto somebody's house, and then over a curb. Like, that just seems kind of far-fetched, especially from the vantage point where the officer would have been. He's in the passenger seat. So allegedly, when this is happening, his car is not even turned around in a position to even observe these particular things. So, Judge, even at a probable cause standard, we know this is not a trial, they have not met their burden for one, having even a purpose to even stop Mr. Winfrey. Least of all, any evidence that they notified Mr. Winfrey that he was being stopped and he then disobeyed that particular order. So, Your Honor, we would ask for this case to not bind over and be dismissed.
He said that they were executing a search warrant on an address of 1029 Lathrop. How does that translate to I can just stop you randomly on the road for a traffic stop? Am I supposed to, I'm going to stop you and take you back to Lathrop? I'm confused about that. I have more questions. The concern about, I think it's unreasonable. Officers don't usually yell out of the vehicle, hey, stop. But a state trooper vehicle has the ability to intercom, and that's reasonable. I do share the concern that the sergeant trooper testified that the black vehicle or a pickup truck had stopped. Trooper hasn't even done a complete U-turn here. He hadn't even finished. There's no black truck there. So that's not true. The black truck didn't yield because it's gone. And that, as you can see at the angle of where this trooper is, he hasn't even turned all the way around yet. So the black truck couldn't yield. The other reason why I want you to stop there, because I'm trying to figure out how big is this sidewalk that a vehicle could get on it. That's why I asked, did he drive on the people's yard? Do you see these leaves and stuff here? I don't even see skid. I don't see any marks where anybody drove through and from here.
Your Honor,
This is the date set for a preliminary examination. The burden is squarely upon the prosecution to establish probable cause. That's more than mere suspicion that the alleged crimes occurred, alleged felony occurred, and that you, Mr. Markeel Winfrey, are the individual who committed the alleged felony. This is a felony charge of fleeing, eluding in the third degree. We had the testimony today of one trooper, Sergeant Scott Williams from Michigan State Police. He stated that on or about March 13th, 2025, that at or near the area of 1029 Lathrop or near Walsh Street, that he was working with the Secured Cities partnership, and that they were executing or to be executing a search warrant at that address, and that that he was advised or notified through surveillance, not through dispatch, that the suspect or subject would be leaving and that he was coming down Wall Street, that he had been provided a picture of the suspect during the briefing. It was the Secretary of State ID or photo, and that the name of the suspect being Markeel Winfrey, which the witness identified here in court. The Sergeant Trooper testified that as they were approaching the area at the intersection, that there was a black pickup truck and a blue Chevy Malibu behind it, which the court saw in Defense Exhibit A, and that based on that Sergeant Trooper's training and experience, this area is an area where the speed limit should be 25 to 35 miles per hour. Also, he indicated that this trooper was not operating the MSP vehicle, but it was a fully marked state police vehicle, that they were in fully marked uniform, that Trooper Harshman was driving. He stated that there was a time during this, what he calls a pursuit, that the vehicle that the MSP was in activated their lights. He testified that when the lights were activated, that the suspect, Mr. Winfrey, pulls up over on the curb, drives through the telephone pole, around the telephone pole, that is, and proceeds down Walsh, evading the officers. Again, it should be noted that when questioned, the trooper testifies that there's a black truck that recognized or saw the lights and that he yielded, but his testimony is that the defendant, or the vehicle that the defendant supposedly was in, did not yield. The court does have concerns about the veracity of that portion of the testimony, because the court is looking at the exhibit of the dash cam, in which at this point, because it did take, I noted how long it took for the trooper to turn the vehicle around. I believe from the time that the lights were activated, which is at the 30-second mark. This right here depicts the 54-second mark. We're talking 24 seconds it took for him to even get to this point. He hasn't even fully turned around yet. In 24 seconds, which if you're in the pursuit or you're trying to stop me, and you're going in the opposite direction, you're going to probably have to get behind me and turn those lights off sooner than 30 seconds for me to assume that you're pulling me over. When we saw the trooper pull his vehicle up, he pulls it off at a diagonal. He's completely facing, even before the defense attorney brought it up, I had already wrote that down. He's completely facing the yard of this house. I would assume you're going to speak to these people. I see people coming there. So if I am there, that's what I would assume. However, if in fact the trooper's statement could prove true here, that the black truck reasonably assumed that the officers were trying to turn around to get them, and he yielded, then I should see the black truck here. At the 54-second mark, before the officer could even get the vehicle completely turned around, there is no black truck. Even if we move it forward and see where the officer completely turned around, there's no black truck even in sight. It's been gone. It's for those reasons that I don't believe that the people have met their burden. This case is dismissed for lack of probable cause.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Markeel Winfrey walked into that courtroom facing a felony, fleeing, and eluding charge in the 3rd degree, a conviction that in Michigan can carry up to 2 years in prison and a permanent felony record that follows you for life. A charge that serious demands evidence that holds up under scrutiny. What the prosecution brought instead was a sergeant whose testimony collapsed against his own dashcam footage, wasting the court's time and putting a man's entire future on the line over a story the camera simply did not support. The judge didn't need a trial to see it. Probable cause denied, case dismissed, and Winfrey walked out of that courtroom that day without a conviction. But the bigger consequence sits with the prosecution. A dismissed preliminary examination means the state burned their shot at the lowest burden of proof the legal system offers. In Michigan, once probable cause is denied at this stage, refiling that same charge becomes a significantly harder road, and the credibility of that sergeant's testimony now has a court record attached to it that says otherwise. If you think walking out of that courtroom means it is completely over for Winfrey, drop it in the comments and subscribe, because the answer might be on this channel sooner than you think.